To do the ladder stitch, just stitch up that last seam on the inside of your vest. First press that seam open so that you have a nice sharp edge and the raw edges are pushed back so it lines up with the rest of the seam. I'm using red thread so you can see what I'm doing. I started from underneath, and basically what you're going to do is take little stitches right on the edge of that fold. So I'm sticking it in on that crease. I'm doing a small stitch like that and pulling it through. Then I go directly across from here to here, straight across, and again grab that edge in the crease. Oops. Do a small stitch right on that crease and pull it through. So you can see my stitching here kind of looks like ladder stitches, or ladder steps. Ladder rungs, here, 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 here. But when I pull it tight, the stitches disappear. See that? Even though I'm using red thread, you can't see them in there. So that's what you just want to keep doing all the way down. So go straight across from the stitch where you brought the needle out and catch it on the other side and go back and forth until that seam is closed. Now to do our buttons and buttonholes, we're going to do that with the machine. When you're putting the buttons and buttonholes on, traditionally when a man is wearing the garment, the left crosses over the right. So you're going to put the buttonholes on the wearer's left side and the buttons on the wearer's right side. I've started the buttonholes here. I'm going to show you how we do that on the machine here. This is your buttonhole foot. It'll look something like this, and the back opens up, and that's where you put your button. You can find this all in your manual too. It might look a little bit different for your machine, but this is for a computerized Brother CS6000i. And I'm going to put the buttonhole foot. The button needs to be snugly in there, so that tells you your machine how big to make the buttonhole. I'm going to put that on there and stick my thread through that hole. I practiced the buttonholes on the same fabric that I will be doing it on. You want to do a couple of practice stitches to make sure that it'll work right. The latest update for upload for some reason is missing the buttonhole marks, so I apologize for that. They're going to be 2 3/4 inches apart. You're going to have 5 buttons. So starting at the top and the bottom points, one in the middle, and then one in the middle of each of those. Those are 2 3/4 inches apart. So I've started the bottom 4, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing the top one. I started it 1/2 inch from the edge here. So I've got a 1/2 inch of room before the buttonhole starts. You start with the rest of the vest behind the machine, and I have here marked where the buttonhole is going to be, and here's my 1/2 inch mark. And that's what's going to go right in that little window that you see, that cross mark. Now, the last important thing, there's a lever down here that you pull down and put behind the buttonhole foot. There's a little latch there. Now make sure that your vest fabric is free to move, so it'll move back and forth nicely. And I have the stitches here. I'm doing this style buttonhole, so it's stitch 33. So I have that set up here. I'm just using their standards. And pull your thread out of the way, and your machine does the work. until it stops on its own. Keep going. And now you have a buttonhole. Now that the buttonholes are sewn, the last thing we need to do is rip them open. This is a very important step. You place a pin at the end so that you don't accidentally rip open the whole buttonhole. It's not fun to do because then you have to start all over and patch the rip. And so always put the pin in there. And then on this end, I'm going to stick the seam ripper through and then carefully rip right between those stitches toward the pin. Take the pin out, and there's your buttonhole. Now we need to mark where the buttons will go, and we're just going to use the buttonholes here. I'm again going to make a mark with a washable marker, 1/2 inch from the edge. Actually, I'm going to go a little further over because I have really big buttons. It's best at this point to try it on or try it on your model so that you can make sure that it fits perfectly with the button placement. You may, if it's a little loose, you may want to move the buttons further from the edge. The reason we do the buttonholes horizontal like this is it gives it a little more ease of movement. They can slide back and forth. If it were up and down, it would be more strict about where it stays. So I'm going to line this up and then make sure that everything is even, and then just stick my pen, washable marker again, through there and make a little cross mark so I know where to put the button. If you're sewing buttons on a machine, computerized machines can actually do that. This is the button foot, an M. It's really convenient. Unfortunately, I always seem to choose buttons that can't be machine sewn. This is what we're using, and I'm going to have to hand stitch those. Same with this one. But if you have a traditional button with the holes, there are stitches to do it, and this actually holds your button and it stitches it on for you. So that's a really useful thing to have. Look it up in your sewing manual, sewing machine manual. So then all that's left is to mark the rest of those and sew on the buttons.